sisters stand together.
Beethoven composed his Third Symphony in turbulent times. Napoleon Bonaparte had overrun Europe with war and brought the ideas of the French Revolution to Europe's monarchies. Beethoven passionately supported the revolution's ideals of freedom, equality, fraternity. His Third Symphony, the Eroica, reflects that enthusiasm. Although Napoleon even threatened Beethoven's adopted home of Vienna, the composer decided to dedicate his symphony to the French general. A gesture he angrily took back, furiously scratching Napoleon's name from the score when the military leader declared himself emperor. In the score, he wrote that the symphony was subsequently dedicated to the memory of a great man. Today, the Eroica is considered revolutionary, a great symphonic achievement. Beethoven's political convictions influenced many of his other compositions. In 1805, he wrote his only opera Fidelio, an opera of liberation. Its theme is the struggle of the individual against an overpowering dictatorship. So Beethoven was a political composer. Can social critique and political commitment be expressed through music? Today, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony is not only the official anthem of the European Union, but also a symbol of freedom worldwide. And it's been the soundtrack of great historical events, including the fall of the Berlin Wall. To this day, Beethoven's Ninth encourages musicians to take a political stand.
See now like a phoenix rising from the rubble of the war, hope of ages manifested, peace and freedom evermore. Brothers, sisters, stand together, raise your voices now as one. Though by history divided, reconciled in unison.
In the mid-1980s, Billy Bragg became the musical face of Britain's political conflicts. The coal miners' strike had paralyzed the country for months. The miners were protesting against pit closures, and many people across the United Kingdom were showing their solidarity.
In 1984, I just started a career as a solo kind of punk singer-songwriter when the miners' strike happened in the UK and the working class mobilised against Margaret Thatcher, and suddenly I was in the right place at the right time to start a more ideological kind of political songwriting.
Like many musicians of his generation, Billy Bragg was influenced by punk rock, which emerged in England in the late 1970s.
The Clash were responsible for my politicisation. When they played at the first big Rock Against Racism festival in London in 1978, I went along. That was the first political activism I'd ever taken part in. And that day changed my perspective on the world. I think Beethoven can be a role model today. When I was tasked with writing a new English language lyric for the Ode to Joy, rather than try to translate directly Schiller's original poem, I just took one line, Alle Menschen werden Brüder, all men become brothers, as that universal idea of humanity, and built on that. My lyric is more or less an expansion of that idea. And I think that it speaks to us down the ages. Whenever the Ode to Joy is used, it's always that humanity that is evoked. The joy of humanity in all its forms is there in Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Currency of music, what we do is empathy. That's what we're singing about. We're trying to make people feel as if they're not alone. We're trying to make people feel emotions for someone they've never met, perhaps, or experiences that they've never themselves had. So that's what we're dealing with at gigs, whether we're political or not. Any songwriter is dealing with that. But if you match that empathy with activism, if you encourage your audience to become active, then you really have the opportunity to do something, because if you mix empathy with activism, you get solidarity.
So, is it the text or is it the music of the final movement of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony which has such a political impact? I decided to ask someone who knows his way around politics as well as Beethoven. Norbert Lammert is one of Germany's best-known politicians. He was president of the German parliament for 12 years, and he's a great Beethoven fan. Do you think that the piece is powerful as a political statement more through the text, or does the music also have something to do with it?
The
influence that music and musicians have had on societal development is remarkable, especially in recent human history. Incidentally, the connection between music and lyrics plays a rather decisive role. Pure instrumental music, I believe, usually does not produce that kind of comparable mobilizing political effect. Singer-songwriters or composers who deliberately tackle political topics and texts can achieve much better results.
The Ninth Symphony is still a bold statement for many. I did a little experiment at the Brandenburg Gate and played the theme of the last movement of the Ninth Symphony for the tourists. Most of them said it was the European anthem and not Beethoven's Ninth Symphony.
The melody has become the European anthem without the words, and has clearly become independent. Almost everyone knows the melody. Not everyone, by a long shot, knows the words.
Kennt den Text.
The Venezuelan pianist Gabriela Montero lives in Barcelona. She has a skill that few classical pianists have mastered, the art of improvisation.
Knowing the anecdotes of how Beethoven would sit down and improvise in the middle of his sonatas, in the middle of his written works, gave me a sense that perhaps in the past, the great geniuses allowed themselves a license to see music as not something that was fixed, but rather malleable.
Gabriela Montero is also known for her political commitment. She's a strong critic of the regime in her home country of Venezuela.
People often ask me why I became involved. Why do I talk about politics and such ugly things that I share sometimes? If you were to look at my social media inbox, you would see hundreds, if not thousands, of stories of Venezuelans who have shared with me countless stories of horror, of exile, of murder, kidnap, starvation, family members dying for lack of medicine. The most basic human needs are not enjoyed by a whole country. Beethoven knew that music is a great amplifier and magnifier of underlying motivations. His example of using the beautiful tool of music to tell a story, to raise awareness, and to leave an imprint in history, telling us today what he went and he lived through at the time, is something that's valid for all generations. I think he was a great example of someone who not only saw music as a tool for joy or a tool for aesthetic beauty, but rather a tool for carrying a message that was perhaps even more important than just writing something sublime.
What was the most innovative thing about Beethoven?
The longer I delve into music in general, and into Beethoven in particular, the more I come to the conclusion that the connection between tradition and innovation was the most outstanding feature for him. One cannot seriously say that Beethoven had nothing to do with the history of music, the pre-existing traditions. Quite the contrary. And conversely, there is hardly anyone else who handles this tradition so confidently and then immediately blows it up.
It's incredible how much Beethoven has shaped our music world. Whether in jazz, film scores, or rock music, his innovations and ideas are everywhere.